Hey, everybody. It's me again, Bishop John Selders with More Monday CT. And I'm glad to be here with you tonight. I'm excited to join in conversations as we, in the tradition I represent, the Christian tradition. I follow Jesus. I like Jesus a lot, But, Father Abraham and Brother Muhammad, peace be unto him. They my cousins, so we good there too. We good there too, and we are here to observe this Holy Week and have meaningful and hopefully important conversations and discourse and dialogue as our faith leads us into action in a public way and not so private ways. And in ways that, as we were talking about last night, in ways that are uncomfortable, quite frankly. If you're comfortable, you're probably doing it wrong. I'm gonna just say that right there, leave it right there. Let me bring on my brother from another mother, our partner in faith and witness for the last 20 years, the Reverend Joshua Pollock, who is the senior minister for the Unitarian Universalist Society East. His congregation is my congregation on the east side.
Amen. Good evening, Bishop. Good to see you again.
All righty. Why don't we talk about what we have on tap tonight? Now, understanding that tomorrow we're going to be doing some stuff. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And Thursday and Friday and Saturday and then Sunday, Easter Sunday, we have programming planned. Check our website, More Money CT. And all of our social media platforms. We'll keep you updated on what's going to be happening. But let's talk about what's happening tonight.
So, mindful that at its core, Moral Monday is a faith-based institution. It's a faith-based organization, and we take action that is grounded in our faith convictions. And we felt that as we kick off the Holy Week of Holy Action, it's really important to start with a conversation about faith. And so we've brought together a truly amazing group of people, faith leaders from around the state of Connecticut, who are doing some amazing work and who can speak very eloquently about the way that their faith calls them to social justice work. And I'm only upset that we only have an hour. There just isn't enough time for all these folks to really go deep, but we'll give it a shot. We will try our best to go as deep as we can. We're going to talk about faith. We're going to talk about theology. We're going to talk about how that faith and how that theology and spirituality informs our social justice work, our anti-racism work, our sanctuary work, our work on behalf of GBLTQ people, our work on behalf of environmental justice. See, there's a lot of ground to cover here. A lot of ground. And you're muted, Bishop.
There I go. Gotta keep, all these things. I'm juggling all these pieces all together. We got a fabulous group, and I'm with you. I'm excited to bring them on. So why don't we bring them on, and then we'll introduce everybody and go around the horn once or twice. Why don't we bring everybody in? Look at that. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Look at those beautiful faces and look at that. Here we all are. Why don't we go round robin? Reverend Josh, why don't you do the honors of introducing everybody?
All right. Well, just looking at my screen, to my right, or maybe that's to my left, is Diane Daniels. And as I was saying earlier, Diane is the one person in Connecticut on this call who I've known longer than Bishop Selders. Diane was a member of the first congregation I served, the Unitarian Universalist Church in Norwich, Connecticut. We met back in 1999. Diane is now a candidate for ministry in the Unitarian Universalist Association. She's a student minister intern at the Unitarian Society of Hartford. She comes out of the Holiness Church. There's a whole story there we probably won't get to, although Bishop, I know you know what I'm talking about when I say holiness. And she also has, and Diane, you can correct me if I'm mischaracterizing this, but somewhat of a hidden background in paganism, Afrocentric paganism, and that's something that you're really exploring now and an identity that you're claiming now. And Bishop, can Diane respond, or should we just go around the circle first?
why don't we go around the circle and then we can just jump in. All right.
Okay, so then Ida Mansour is next on my screen, and I've known you for quite a while too, and I know you've known Bishop John Selders for quite a while. Leader in the Muslim community in Connecticut, the Muslim Coalition of Connecticut. Also, the connections we've been having recently are as members of the Greater Hartford Interfaith Action Alliance. You're part of the mosque, and I'm forgetting the formal name of the mosque. A lot of us know it as the Berlin Mosque, but they're a member of Greater Hartford Interfaith Action Alliance, as is my congregation in Manchester. So it's great to see you here tonight. Reverend Aaron Miller is pastor. Oh, wait, I should say, Ida, you're also a Muslim chaplain. And I'm blanking on where, so you're gonna have to say.
She's at the Hartford Seminary,
right?
Right, as the coordinator of Muslim chaplaincy, right? Am I getting that right, Ida?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yes.
Yeah, she is. She's like a bigwig. She's an administrator at the seminary. Woo!
Yeah.
Don't look like that. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And I will say, and I think I know the name of the Berlin Mosque. It is the Greater Hartford Islamic Center. Am I getting that right?
So close. Islamic Association of Greater Hartford.
That's
Very
right.
close.
Islamic Association, not association. All right.
Thank you for that introduction.
We everybody knows it as the Berlin Mosque. You can't get that out of there. So that's how we're gonna roll with it tonight. Thank you.
And then so we're joined by Reverend Aaron Miller, who is the pastor at the Metropolitan Community Church of Hartford. And we go back a pretty long way. I know we shared a room one night in Washington, D.C. when we were down there lobbying on the Employment Non-Discrimination Act, and we were making the rounds of our senators and representatives. But we've done a lot of work, particularly around transgender rights and GBLTQ rights, GBLTQ youth, and also sanctuary. Your congregation is a sanctuary congregation, and I don't know that you've hosted anyone who's trying to avoid deportation, but you're ready to do that. At least the last time I checked, you were ready to do that. And yeah, okay, almost there. But it's great to have you on. Rabbi Brian Emmerman is relatively new at the Congregation Michigan Israel in Hamden, Connecticut. And you're probably the person I know the least well on this call, but I know your congregation has supported the sanctuary movement as part of the sanctuary movement. That's where we met a couple of years back. But you're gonna have to when we let you speak, you're gonna have to say a little bit more about yourself, because I don't know. We don't know you that well. Bilal Ansari, the one thing I can say about you is in terms of our connection is we were both part of the Interfaith Fellowship for Universal Healthcare, going back some ways, and that's like a decade ago almost at this point. But you got a number of things going on. I know you do some chaplaincy work up at Williams College, correct? In Western Mass?
He's an administrator. He's an assistant VP of multiculti affairs or something. He got one of them big old names and things. He's in a college administrator too, you know. But he's also a professor at Hartford Seminary and has done some chaplaincy work around the country as well as here in his backyard. And he's a good brother and my friend. And every time it's time to turn up, he's ready to turn up with us. So welcome, brother Bilal.
And then
Bilal, let's say.
And then finally, Pastor Rodney Wade has joined us. He is the pastor at Long Hill Bible Church in Waterbury, Connecticut. He's a leader with Concerned Black Clergy of Waterbury. If I have my facts correct, you're a chaplain at the VA in West Haven. Is that correct?
I work at the VA, but I'm not operating in that capacity. So
okay. And you've also been part of in more recent years, part of the Interfaith Fellowship for Universal Healthcare, and we have worked tirelessly on behalf of a vision of universal healthcare in Connecticut, a state where every person regardless of who they are, where they come from, what their financial status is, what their immigration status is. Every person has access to quality, affordable healthcare. Healthcare is a human right, and so I know that's something that is very important to a lot of people on this call tonight. So that's my introductions. I hope I've done well.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You've done very well. Thank you, brother. So what we thought we would do tonight. I'm sorry. Look, I'm pushing buttons, and I done pushed the wrong button. What we thought we would do tonight is in a fairly round robin fashion, and just jump in where you can. Signal you got something to say, but each of you I've known in either a big way or some way. In fact, most of you in some way we have a connection. And Rabbi Emmerman, in particular, your congregation I have a personal connection with Congregation Michigan Israel over the years, and was in fact gifted with the honor of being the Martin Luther King Day speaker a number of years ago, a long time ago. But that congregation, check this out. So they built a new building in Hampton there. When they were dedicating the building, their guest speaker was scheduled to be the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. However, he couldn't be there because he was locked up in the joint in Birmingham. He was in the joint at Birmingham. So they did do a ceremony, and he came to speak a year later. Do I have that story right, Rabbi? He came to speak a year later. And so
that's correct.
The year I was there, after hearing this story, I felt a kind of a double, triple honor that I was standing in the spot that Dr. King stood, in proxy representing Black preachers, some 40, 50 years later. So that congregation has a long history, and I'd love for Rabbi Emmerman to talk a little bit about, the continued work of Congregation Michigan Israel. But so I wanted to say that right off, that we got a King connection right there. We got a King connection going on right there. So each of us in our own personal and prophetic way, I would call it that way. And I love it when I get to talk faithy, because in some of the contexts I got to watch how much faith talk I talk, because that might get me in a little bit of trouble, Reverend Aaron. But love the opportunity to talk faithy, to talk about how our faith informs our justice work in particular. Can't talk for me. There is such a connection between what is faith work and what is justice work, and they work hand in hand. And so in your overall witness and in your overall walk, could you talk a little bit about that and how your community and you personally connect with that? Sister Diane, why don't you begin, since we started with you and your interesting journey to faith. Could you talk a little bit about that?
I certainly could. Thank you so much for having me, Bishop Selders. I am acquainted with you. I actually drove all the way to Bridgeport to hear you speak on one occasion because I'd heard that you were going to be speaking, and I knew that you were going to be a powerful speaker. And so I decided to make that trip. I think my daughter even came with me, but I am very grateful to you and to Reverend Josh for inviting me to be a part of this discussion. And I'll tell you a little bit about me, and then something about my faith journey, and then a little bit about how it informs my justice work and my activism. So I am a 20+ year member of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Norwich, and I was brought to that church through the influence of a beloved and trusted elder who is fortunately still in my life. I'm also a 3rd-year seminarian at the Star King School for the Ministry, and I identify as spiritually fluid because I incorporate both Unitarian Universalism and pagan spiritual practices in my personal path. Now, the term spiritually fluid might not be familiar to a lot of people. It was coined by an author by the name of Dwayne Bidwell. and it's meant to describe people who draw from multiple spiritual sources for their path. The term pagan is generally defined as a person that holds religious beliefs other than those of the main world religion, and that term fits me perfectly. I identify that way because not only am I an adherent of the Unitarian Universalist faith, but I am also studying and living into the faith of my ancestors, which can be called root work or hoodoo, depending on who you ask. Now, if you ask 5 or 6 different people what root work and hoodoo are, you'll get 5 or 6 different answers, including the incorrect assumption that it's the same as voodoo, but it is not. And for the purposes of today's discussion, I want to give folks a little bit of an orientation by using author Katrina Hazard Donald's description from her book, Mojo Workin', The Old African American Hoodoo System, that was published in 2013. So hoodoo or root work is the indigenous herbal, healing, and supernatural controlling spiritual folk tradition of African Americans in the United States. It involves embodied historical memory that links us back in time to previous generations and ultimately to our African past. So some of the retained aspects of hoodoo and root work that have been learned and passed along, it comes through parents and grandparents, great grandparents that pass on the stories and the information, the beliefs and the superstitions. If you've ever had a relative that would get angry at you when you hit their foot with a broom, there's a reason for that. There are practices and paradigms that are passed down to their descendants, sometimes inadvertently and sometimes on purpose. Some of those practices from hoodoo and root work back from the early days made their way into the African American and Black Christian church tradition, and sometimes they're still entwined with them, either as a complement or sometimes as a challenge to church power. So one of the aspects of hoodoo and root work that has been the most satisfying for me has been the practice of ancestor veneration. It's the practice of honoring your ancestors, those who went before you. And unfortunately, my family has fallen victim to the twin challenges of heart disease and diabetes. You are looking at the last of my line in front of you. All my siblings are gone. My parents and grandparents are gone. I have one uncle left of my mother's family. There were 7 of them, and I have one uncle left. And it's a difficult thing to deal with when you already have your history having been taken from you, and then when you don't have the elders to go back and talk to about the history. So I express my gratitude to my ancestors for passing along their strength, their fortitude, their refusal to give up, a deep love for everyone in their circle, whether they are blood related or not. And it is that paradigm that I come through, and it is that inheritance that drives me forward. I don't believe any one group has all the answers. I found my way to Unitarian Universalism because of the influence of that respected elder that I mentioned to you. But when I got to the faith, there was so much that resonated with me, and so much that I believe my ancestors would have enjoyed as well. There's a lot more that I could say, and Josh will tell you I can talk for hours about this. I love talking about my family and my faith. I've been involved in working for my community for quite some time. I had the good fortune to be an NAACP branch president. Many of you will know the name of Jacqueline Owens, who was the longtime president in the Norwich branch. And when we unfortunately lost her, I was favored to take the presidency position behind her, following in the steps of another ancestor. So I will stop there for now because I do want to make sure I leave time for my other panel members. And I just want to express to you again my joy at being here, and thank you so much for this opportunity to meet all these lovely people and to reacquaint myself with you, Bishop.
Thank you so very much. I know a favored person in my household wants to talk to you more about that hoodoo stuff right there, and the root work. I live with a root worker. I think. Those of you who know Pamela know there's a shared reality to that. And I come from a tradition. I come from the Pentecostal tradition, and the founder of the Church of God in Christ. They don't want to tell it, but he was a root worker. So several of us are bi-religious or tri-religious in nature, and we can speak about that as we continue this conversation. Sister Ida, come on, jump in here and talk to us about how faith works in your context.
So in particular, with regard to justice, so we're told that if we see an injustice, there's a tradition from the Prophet Muhammad that says that if we see an injustice, we should change it with our hand, so with action. And if we can't do that, we should change it with a word. And if we can't do that, say it with a prayer in our heart. But that's the least of faith. So really, we're told, that we have to try and do something if we see an injustice. And the Quran actually has quite a few verses. That's a holy scripture. It has several verses regarding justice. And I'll just read you one because this is my favorite. It says, this is in the 4th chapter, verse 135. And it says, in the name of the one God, the most gracious, the most merciful, you who believe, uphold justice and bear witness to God, even if it is against yourselves, your parents, or your close relatives. Whether the person is rich or poor, God can best take care of both of them. Refrain from following your own desires so that you can act justly. If you distort or neglect justice, God is fully aware of what you do. And for me, this verse actually, I reflect on it every day. We need to make a difference in this earth, and it's really amazing to think that each of us in our lives can make a big difference. And I'm just worried, in terms of, have I caused sort of harm to anybody? And I think we all as individuals need to think about that. And so that's one of my my sort of reflections daily. So I just wanted to add that. But in terms of what we do in the community, I just wanted to say it's a joy to be part of GEA, the Greater Hartford Interfaith Action Alliance. It gives us the opportunity to make a difference on the interfaith arena and bring everybody together. And then in the Muslim community, we do work on sort of specific issues like healthcare and those kinds of things. But it's so important to come together and make coalitions. So I want to just stress that coalitions are good. And I'll stop talking now. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Ida. The work of the Berlin Mosque goes far and wide, and your faith work and your witness, I bear witness to the commitment that you and the brothers and sisters make on a regular basis to the walk of justice and to the walk of faith. Thank you so very much. Reverend Aaron, you want to jump in?
Sure. And so great to thank you for the invitation. So great to be among you tonight. I've been the pastor at MCC Hartford for 10 years. And if you don't know MCC, it was started for social justice. It was started for the LGBTQ community in 1968 because we weren't welcome in churches. Although we've made a lot of progress, we haven't made that much or enough, let's just say, here and certainly throughout the world. So we're in 40 countries and we lead pride parades and open churches in places like Uganda where it's criminalized. So there's a lot of, we're a nice blend, depending upon the MCC you look at, between ministry and social justice. And so I've been doing a lot of work around that. I would say to you that, our work, started, of course, as I say, with the LGBTQ community, but it's all intersectional. So the folks that we're helping are people of color, people in other marginalized groups. And so you'll find us pretty much at almost anything that has social justice attached to it, because it affects what affects us, affects all of us. And of course, that's true across the board. I would say that if we're going to quote scripture, the one that guides me personally is Micah 6:8, which is what does God require of us? And that's to act justly, love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. But what is really, and that's just a guiding point, what I would say that really the focus of my work is around love. And the command, the greatest command in Christianity, and according to Jesus, is that we love, after loving God, we are to love one another as we love ourselves. And I think the greatest misnomer is that the as is equal, which we should be loving others as we, or equal to as we love ourselves. And the being marginalized and being told that we're not worthy of love by other people and not lovable by God or loved by God has been very damaging to us. And I would suspect and say that that's true of anybody who's told that they are less than. And so my work is really around telling you that that's not true. And that God loves you and created you intentionally and lovely. And I'm going to continue to my very last breath to speak words of love and God's love for all. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend Aaron Miller. You have been a faithful witness and a partner with us. Every time we call, I turn around, or when the call goes out, I turn around and there you are, collar on, ready to stand with us. And so we appreciate you and appreciate your work and ministry and the ministry of the Metropolitan Community Churches worldwide. Another Pentecostal, started by another Pentecostal.
Yes.
I just want to say,
Yes.
hey, Sister Diane, we go far and wide, but Bilal, I'm coming to you. I'm coming to you in a minute. Rabbi Emmerman, would you join us and introduce yourself to us and the work of Congregation Michigan Israel and all of what you all are involved in?
Certainly. Thank you all. It's an honor to be with you and already so inspired by what's been said so far. So I'm relatively new. I can almost not say that anymore. I'm coming up on finishing my third year at Congregation Michigan Israel. But in terms of our history, we've been around for 180 years, founded in 1840 in New Haven. And as a bishop was saying, we moved to Hamden. And but already then the clergy and the congregation were deeply committed to social justice. And like Ms. Daniels said, one thing that really connected with me is it's both a reaction to faith, but also to the path that our ancestors had, even just one generation or even then themselves. Our congregation was very involved in the resettling of Russian refugees in the late 1800s. Of course, there were Holocaust survivors who came in the 30s and 40s and beyond. And we're also committed to the teachings of our tradition. We're in the festival of Pesach, of Passover right now, and we're celebrating the redemption, God reaching out with a strong and outstretched arm to redeem us from Egypt. And in Hebrew, Egypt is Mitzrayim, which comes from the root word tsar, which means a narrow place, right? It's geographically this narrow place with the Nile River, but that allows us, and then in the rabbinic tradition, since has allowed us to think about what does it mean to just be in a narrow place, to be bound, to be confined, and the need for redemption all the time, and the need for us to go and redeem others as well. The quote that I have been saying over and over is, when a stranger, this comes from Leviticus 19, and it's all about love as well. When a stranger resides with you in your land, you shall not wrong him. The stranger who resides with you shall be to you as one of your citizens. You shall love him as yourself, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am Adonai, your God, who freed you from the land of Egypt. We have a generational, peoplehood concept of being strangers, of being an oppressed people, both in Egypt and then, of course, throughout history. And we have to use that memory to then work to redeem others. It's been passed down to us, and it's our job to continue that as well. Being at CMI has been an incredible honor. Serving as a faith leader after standing on the shoulders of so many who came before me. Rabbi Brockman of 32 years is a beloved social justice leader in our community, of course. Rabbi Goldberg before him, Rabbi Bruce Cohen in the middle, who left CMI after just a couple of years to really do social justice work full time on the ground. And I have to say, I've been here for 3 years. I'm not looking to fill anybody's shoes. I can never fill their shoes. We're going to bronze their shoes. They've put a lot of miles on those shoes, and it's my obligation now, standing on their shoulders, to break in my own shoes and to continue to do this work. And it's just an honor to be doing it. And I just want to, we'd already been having some racial justice conversations, and what that really allowed us to do is then look inward. And we've been meeting monthly with over 45 members of our congregation for the last 2 or 3 months, and we have 4 more sessions, including this week. We're looking inward. What race are we? What is our obligation, and how do we stand with our Black and brown brothers and sisters who are both members of our community and outside of our doors to really make change? How do we best do that work? And that introspective work has been so important and so meaningful. So it's really an honor to be called the Rabbi of CMI.
Thank you, Brother Rabbi Emmerman. Again, leaders in our community. We say we look forward to the continued relationship, to just growing and continue under your leadership. Pastor Rodney, take it away, brother. We're brothers and friends in the journey, and Waterbury is in the house. Waterbury is in the house.
Good evening to everyone. Bishop, thank you for affording myself the opportunity, you and Josh, to be in the space tonight. And so I am extremely grateful and thankful. As which was noted earlier, I am the senior pastor of Long Hill Bible Church in Waterbury, Connecticut. A church that is unapologetically in love with Jesus and what all of that means, but also crystal clear about our commitment to community and social justice and community work as a whole. My path started many years ago. I've been at Long Hill now 11 years, man. It seems like just yesterday I arrived as a young man, but Waterbury grows you up real fast. So from that standpoint, but truth be told, as it relates to ministry and what's important to me, I got a hold of a book many years ago entitled God in the Ghetto. God in the Ghetto. And basically, the author of that book just framed this narrative around, hey, if you don't understand, if you don't get God right, you will never get relationships right, people. And then if you don't get people right, you will never get your society right. You will not frame and craft a society that will be meaningful and beneficial to all of us, right? To each and every human being. And so just from reading that book just kind of drove my narrative of, I wanted to get God right. Who is this God, and what is he about? And discovered that he is a God of love. And so when you see God right, then you can see your neighbor right. You'll understand that they are a human being, that they desire the same things that you desire, right? Good homes, good health, economic empowerment, all of those particular things. And then finally, you'll look to direct your community. And so for me, ministry is not just simply, what we call in our church per se. We're trying to take the resources of the church and bring them to bear, if you will, on low and moderate people of color, black and brown, and whoever, anybody who is not being treated fairly. We want to bring the resources of the church to bear to help to bring them up higher. And the scripture that comes to mind to me that I quote quite often is John 1:14, but I like the Message version, and it just simply says this: the word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. The word became flesh and blood and moved into the neighborhood. And I'm just a firm believer that anybody who is connected in faith, who is walking out, this faith and this journey, and you're only concerned about what's happening in the building, you're misplaced and misguided. I don't care how much dancing you're doing. I don't care how much shouting you're doing. If you don't recognize the plight and the problem of people all around you and really want to see individuals from every aspect of life come up just a little bit higher, then I go back to that book. You don't understand God. You don't understand people. And you're not trying to frame the community that I want to be a part of. So that's it. Thank you so much.
Well, you better look out there. Flesh, blood moved into the neighborhood. That's my kind of talking right there, boy.
Flesh and blood moved into the neighborhood. That's right.
Into the neighborhood. It is so clear to me that if we as faithful, all right, I'm gonna quote my own scripture on it. I think I hear Apostle Paul say it like this. He said, though I speak with the tongues of men and of angels, all right, and have not love, then I ain't got nothing. Let me put John Selders on it. Ain't nothing to it. Ain't nothing to it. That our witness has to have. Here's another part of our Christian canon. Here's another point: faith without works, dead on arrival, right? So here we are again. If we could do anything, if our conversation could do anything, we've got to inspire. We got one more inspirational voice to get in here. Imam Bilal, speak to us just a little bit from your tradition and from your way.
Okay. So I want to thank Bishop and also Reverend Josh for the invitation. I also want to thank my sister, like Diane, for those inspiring words too. You inspired me to listen to my ancestors this evening. And if I listen to my ancestors, what conjures up in me is my grandmother, my Nana, standing by the stove, and she's stirring, some grits, and she's singing the song, "Just another day that the Lord has kept me. He has kept me from all evil when my mind stayed on him. Just another day that the Lord has kept me." And I think that is the inspiration of all of our ancestors, both those in the bush, the root workers, and the Muslims who were put on ships and made it over the passage. It was just another day that my Lord has kept me. Um, and from the migration from my ancestors from the plantations in Florida, and my ancestors and from the plantations and in like South Carolina, when they migrated north, it was just another day that the Lord has kept them. And when my father accepted Islam, reclaiming the DNA from West Africa that had been stripped from him by his slave masters, who refused to allow the free exercise thereof of all religions, and insisted on the hegemonic religion of the cross on him. When he was liberated to listen to Malcolm X in New York, he accepted the faith. But basically, he was saying the same thing: just another day that the Lord has kept him. And so I'm here fighting for that same cause, helping like Sister Diane, my grandfather and grandmother who were the owners of a black church. They died at the age of like 58 years old because of lack of health care and lack of awareness of self-care. And so diabetes and heart disease has claimed too many. And so we are here fighting for justice in that. We are fighting for fair housing. I served in the prisons, both state and the feds, and black men and black women who come home, there's no affordable housing, and they're forced to go back into the same vicious cycle. And I think they're calling out just another day that the Lord has kept them. And so justice, as my sister Mansour has said, is against the rich and the poor and to my own self. So I look myself in the mirror every day and I ask, how am I fighting for justice? And I fought with justice with like Reverend Josh and with a Bishop Selders, and I will continue responding to your call every time we can fight for justice. That's the call to action. That is what holy means. That is what holy is. Because like Jesus said, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world, but to lose his soul in the process? And so in Jesus's name, we can either stand and pray and recognize that what does it profit a whole man to gain the world and you are losing the souls around you? And so that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm here to share, Brother Bishop.
Yes, sir. He started teaching. I didn't know I asked you to preach, bro. I just asked you to have a comment or two. Reverend Josh, what would you have us hear from your neck of the woods?
Well, I got a question. I mean, I got a lot I can report on up east of the river, Manchester area. And one thing is maybe just to name that on Friday night is April 2nd. It's Good Friday in the Christian calendar, but it's also the 1-year anniversary of the police murder of Jose Soto, who was a young unarmed Puerto Rican man who was shot on his mother's front porch. It's a very tragic story, and we're going to go out Moral Monday, Power Up Connecticut, our congregation. We're going to go out 7 o'clock on Friday night and simply bear witness to that anniversary. But it's when that happened, it just seemed so important for somebody to actually reach out to the family and say, what do you need? And it turned out like not everybody does that, right? And the town wasn't doing it. The churches weren't doing it. And we tracked down a sister on Facebook and we contacted her, and then we got in touch with the family. And so when Reverend Pastor Wade said flesh, blood moved into the neighborhood, that made me think of that we really, it was really important to us to be in relationship with a family that was grieving in this way. And here we are a year later, and this ain't over yet. It is definitely not over yet, but we're gonna go out and be with them on Friday night. I'm mindful that anytime we do the real work of struggling for social justice, we're really trying to change something. It creates tension. If we're doing it right, it creates tension. And I am also mindful that most religious institutions, congregations, don't like tension. They don't like it at all. They're inherently conservative. Even the liberal progressive ones are inherently conservative. They are called together, gathered together to conserve some of the values we're talking about in this conversation. But when we go out into the public square, and as Bishop likes to say, engage in turn up, turn it up, bring people out, take the street, bear witness, however you do it. there are always people that are uncomfortable with that. People who we serve as pastors and chaplains. What do you do about that? I'm curious. I think it is a really important part of the social justice conversation. I do think that clergy who get too far out ahead of the people they serve do run into trouble. We have plenty of stories about that, and yet we are all called. You've all said that here tonight. So I'm just curious if you have thoughts about the inherent conservatism in congregations, even liberal and progressive ones. I see Diane.
I also saw Bilal's hand up. You want to go first, my brother? Okay, I see you pointing at me. I want to encourage those who are maybe a little bit uncomfortable with the activism they see coming from the church they attend or that they know of or that they see or hear coming from the pulpit. We are walking in our ancestors' shoes when we agitate. They did not have as many resources as we have to make change happen. It took over a year for the Montgomery bus boycott to have the desired effect. 365 days. Think about that for just 1 minute. If you had to change how you got to work every day for a year, how long would you be willing to stand, to hold on to your principles, to refuse to give up, to say, no, I will not be moved? Yes, it's inconvenient. No, it's not easy, but neither is living life under an unjust system. We have to be prepared to work for the long haul, because trying to do it in a short amount of time may or may not work. But we can and we have outlasted those who disapprove of what we're trying to do, because we not only have our faith, we have our strength, and I firmly believe we've got our ancestors behind us telling us to keep on going, because we didn't give up on you. We came from the strongest, the brightest, and the best of our families. No one else could have survived everything they went through to get us to where we are now. We owe it to them to stand.
Anybody else want to jump in? But Bilal got waylaid just for a minute.
I see Aaron. Go ahead, Reverend Aaron.
So, oh no, he's back. Let Bilal go first.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, my internet, connection is gone. Yeah, I got distracted. What was the prompt again?
Just that question about tension, creating tension,
Oh,
people getting uncomfortable.
yeah.
How do we persevere?
Yeah, so it reminded me of when Martin Luther King was in the Birmingham jail. It was white ministers who was problem with the same problem. They were questioning uh, his activism, and that story reminded me of the story of Joseph in the Quran. It's 12th chapter, where Joseph, in the Quranic narrative, says prison is more preferable to me than what they invite me to, and so I imagine Martin Luther King Jr. was saying the same thing as Joseph, that prison is sometimes more attractive to me, and that's what we fail to remember. That's how we got to where we are now. There was ancestors of ours who was saying that lock me up, put those things on me. I'll go to prison. I'll spend some time, but that is more attractive because what I see in the future is better than what we are experiencing now. If you read this, I'll read yearly the narratives of those who were enslaved, and there's this running narrative between the old times, those who were enslaved, and the new ones, those who who grew up on the plantation but only for a short time. They talk about the old time, like the old time, or like religion and faith, of 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 those people who knew that they were going to be free, that they were living as if they were free, even though the sting of the lash was stronger and harder. They did not doubt a day. Their faith was action every day. And they talked about that the difference between those who were from the old time. They described them as walking as if they knew freedom was coming, even though they were furthest from it. And then those who were closer to freedom had lost sight of that faith and that action. And so this is the same problem we're facing now, that those who are so liberated and so free, and they lose sight of that passion and that drive, and that's what we got to get back to. And so that's what I just wanted to say.
You know, you give him the mic, he go to preaching quick, don't he? He just turn up quick and go to preaching. Sister Ida, how would you address that? I mean, I know your congregation, but how would you respond to Reverend Josh?
So I have to say that, you know, sort of the Muslim community is very, very diverse. And many of those who are immigrants have this fear of pushing the envelope, and we have to work against that. And so we are kind of trying, but I have to say the youth are an incredible asset to us. So we're kind of you know, sort of encouraging our youth to be those people who advocate for justice and supporting them. So that's you know, I'm so just impressed by the youth. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, sister. I will bear witness to that fact. Every time I'm with our brothers and sisters at the mosque, it's the young people that turn out. First off, secondly, they ready to go, and they looking at the old folk who like, wait a minute, hold on. They like, what you talking about? He's talking about what I want to talk about. So I want to just bear witness, and quite frankly, for me, it is at that spot where we have the chance to all learn and grow together. Quite frankly, we wouldn't have had the Black Lives Matter movement that we now, some of us, claim leadership in, if it weren't for my nieces and nephews in Ferguson. Them young people who got sick, they were vibing from Fannie Lou Hamer, who said, you know, generations before, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, right? And they got tired and they turned up, and they didn't wait for the NAACP. They didn't wait for the Urban League. They didn't wait for them preachers and pastors to come through. They turned up on their own, and it was their action that actually began, that put legs and arms and heart into a movement that now claims itself to be a global movement. So I appreciate that very much, and I'm looking for the Muslim community via the young people to continue the tradition and get involved and turn up. Rabbi Emmerman, your congregation is well, you got something to say about that, I'm sure.
So many thoughts. One is, you know, when we're talking about prison, I would be remiss if I didn't mention the Congregations Organized for a New Connecticut is working on this clean slate legislation to help people who have already served their time, regardless of what you think about their imprisonment, which we know is racially motivated. And, you know, I'm even thinking about, as the marijuana legalization is making its way through our state house, how many people wouldn't have been in, but we can get it. But call your legislators and tell them to pass clean slate now. Oh man, I had one more place I was going with that.
It'll come to you in a minute. That's what happens with old peoples. Old peoples. I just, you know, old peoples. That's what we're gonna call it. Keep it going.
We were talking about those who are so free, right? Losing sight. We had there's a professor at Yale who wrote a book on Exodus, and he was teaching a class for us a while back, and he was showing us what his research has shown is that people use this Exodus narrative, right? And then they become free, and then they enslave, and then the people they enslave use the Exodus narrative, and then they enslave after they became free. And you know, one of the things that I'm struck by, Professor Jeffrey Sonnenfeld also at Yale, the Yale School of Business, who's a proud congregant of mine at CMI. He was just featured in a New York Times article where he said, where are all these businesses that were saying Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter over the summer, now that Georgia is passing these racially segregating voting rights, voting restrictions? And he's calling these corporations out, saying it's great for white people like me to put a sign that says Black Lives Matter, but then I actually have to do something about it. And that it's so we're so free, and then we forget, and we have to hold on to this fact that freedom, first of all, can be very fleeting. But once we are free, we're free from slavery, and that means we're free to accept the obligation to free others.
See, this is an interesting and absolute must be understood that and Dr. King talked about it. In fact, in that Birmingham jail, he wrote a little bit of letter, small little writing that for me, it's, as a Christian, we have 4 gospels. Well, for me, I got 5 because Dr. King's letter from the Birmingham jail outlines it. He said it this way. He said, none of us are free until all of us are free, right? That he couldn't sit idly by he had moved from Alabama, where he began his ministry, his public work and his public ministry in Montgomery. He had moved back to Atlanta, but he said, listen, I can't sit in Atlanta and stand by while my sisters and brothers are catching it in Birmingham. So we are all tied together. Here it is again. We're all tied together in a mutual garment of destiny, right? So it is very clear that our faith, our witness, our bearing witness must be coupled with our action. I love Frederick Douglass. He said, I prayed, for 20 years, right? And nothing happened until I started praying with my feet, with my legs. It's the action, our physical action, that puts us in the right space and frame for the bearing witness of this faith. Reverend Miller and then Reverend Wade, and then we got to go. I was just about up. You look at that.
Yeah. Do you want to go first, Pastor Wade, because you have to leave at 8?
Sure. Man, just powerful tonight. I wish we had longer to discuss, but I would frame it around this. Too often we get caught up in the politics of acceptability. And so, we got these folk in these churches now who think that they are somebody and that they got something to lose by. And so you hear these conversations around, I ain't marching, I ain't protesting, I ain't standing up, because on one level they think that they have already arrived. But I would argue everything that you think that you are, somebody has planted that. Is that really who you are, right? And really what you believe. And so I challenge my church all the time. I mean, here's the reality, back to the Exodus narrative. When they get to the Red Sea, they don't get across that water until somebody first stepped in it. Are you understanding what I'm saying? And so nothing changes until you are committed to make a move. So you can talk about it, you can fuss about it, you can get frustrated by it, but until you are prepared to make a move. And so I use this analogy with my church all the time. Our church is up on a hill, and when I first came there, it was potholes, and nobody was coming up there to shovel or any of those particular things, and these folk was fussing. And I said to them, I said, many of y'all talk about y'all don't want to be involved in social justice and politics, but that's politics. And I said, and so the next time you go down that hill and your axle falls off of your car, don't come running to me. Don't be cussing out the maintenance person because you don't want to deal in politics and social justice. But that's what it is, because other parts of the city, they don't have to worry about those same problems that you are worrying about. And so you have to get involved, because at the end of the day, nothing changes until you are prepared to take that first step. And so that's what we try to do over here with our folks, challenge them to take the first step. And and there's an old rap song that would declare, I ain't never scared. And I think that's what we try to put down in our people, that it's our difference that ultimately is going to make the difference, because we are very clear that the status quo has to change. And so I think that's how we try to combat that. And I had one of my folk tell me the other day, we were talking about something. He was like, well, right around Black Lives Matter, was afraid to do some certain things. Well, they gonna be mad. I'm like, who is they? You got to get to a place where you understand who you are and whose you are. And this same God that you're praying to, in this church building, is the same God who will keep you outside of that building. And so you just got to be prepared to get into the fight, get into the work. And I like what Bilal said, and really just discover it's just another day that the Lord has kept me. Yeah. I gotta go. Hey, I appreciate you, Bishop, and everyone else on the panel. I wish we had more time tonight, but I need to run now to my space we're doing the last, Passion Week, and so I got to go over there and do that. But this has been wonderful and marvelous, and we definitely need to do it again. We definitely need to do it again. And so, big ups to you, Bishop, and to Josh putting this together. I appreciate y'all so much.
Thank you, Pastor. We will do it again, brother. We will do it again. Reverend Aaron, you jump in there. You got the last word, and we're going to have to go. We a little bit over our time.
I know, I see that. But everything we said leads to this moment that what I wanted to share, because one of the things that we say in business, if you are leading and you look back and nobody's with you, you're simply out for a good walk, a nice walk. And so so if you're the Exodus and you're stepping out into that water, right, and nobody's with you, then what's really happening? There's nothing happening. So here's the thing. What happened, in a very quick statement, because this is really important, I think, for another view of this, is that when we were going to Sanctuary and we were asked if we would take in a couple who was a lesbian couple, that one of them was being snatched up and deported, I had to go to the church and ask them if they would take in this couple. And it calls the question. I mean, we walk this, we preach it, we do all of that. But the minute I asked the question, wasn't that, and part of it, of course, was I'm safe, I'm comfortable. We're a marginalized group. What actually, I have to tell you, I was surprised. The level of fear and terror that I felt in that moment was palpable. And what they were saying and what everybody was saying was that they were afraid of what would happen to them, since we are an at-risk population to begin with. And so it took me, and this is my point, took a week, which actually is really a miracle. But I went back to everybody who was hurting, and I gave pastoral care all the way through the week to the people that were frightened, that were hurting. And by the end of the week, it was almost a unanimous yes. But we can't leave anybody behind, is my point. People stay behind for their reasons, whatever they are, and sometimes very, very good reasons. We have to make sure that we heal them to bring them along.
Thank you so very much, Reverend Aaron. My beloved was in the chat, and she was preaching her own sermons, and she said something that it's worth mentioning as we wrap. She says enslavement is never acceptable, even if human beings tend to want to do it. Right? She goes on to say, healed people care for people. They don't repeat the wrong that has been done to them. So let's be about the business of being free, and let's be free, and let us heal. Right? I think she said lastly, both are necessary. Right? So it is this is the nexus point where faith and justice must operate. We were talking last night that at the end of all of our political work and all of the everything, there are people, there are real lives in the balance. And so it's important, it's incumbent upon us that I love my nieces and nephews in Ferguson because I know them, right? And they wasn't playing. They were done. They were done with the antics, and they was about it. They was going to be about, as the young people say, they was going to be about that life, right? They were going to actually, I mean, and they didn't have all the education. They didn't have all the know-how. They didn't have all the resources that some would say they have. What they had was heart. What they had was a witness, and what they had was an ability and a willingness to get out there and do the work. They learned as they went along. And so that's what you found out, Reverend Aaron, that as you go, you get all of what you need. And in fact, it's interesting that when you start out, when you have a commitment to do something, you find out you know more than what you thought you knew. And you have all of what you need is right there accessible to you. Just go tap into it. It's that root. It's that root that Sister Diane began us with. I am so godly pleased and proud that I am in the company, such a cloud of witnesses who bear witness to the fact that God is sovereign and center, but it's going to take our hands and feet to make God look like something other, you know, and be about it in this world. I appreciate all of you, Reverend Aaron, Rabbi Emmerman, Imam Bilal, Sister Ida, thank you, Sister Diane, Reverend Josh, our brother, Reverend Rodney, who had to leave. Thank you. But Josh, you got any last word to say?
No, I'm just really high. I think this is a great conversation. And yeah, an hour, or I guess we're at an hour and 7, just not enough. And I do want to do it again. I think we definitely should. And Bishop, thank you so much to you for organizing us and leading us. It's always great to be in your presence.
Can't leave out my beloved Pamela is here she's here in the chat. She's in the room, just she ain't on this thing by her. We're not looking at her straight up, but she's here as well, and I can't leave her out. We co-lead together this work, and with you, we are leaders together. We're workers together in the vineyard. And while you have a vineyard over there in East, over on the east side of town. Sister Diane is over on she's in the west side of town, but she's really, really far east, right? Right. We got New Haven taken care of, and Hamden. Reverend Aaron, you're holding up the what we would call the bloodstained banner. You're holding it up right here in Hartford. We are all workers together. We're all workers together. And this has been a brilliant conversation. This has been a timely one. Listen, family, we got plenty to do. Tomorrow we will be on the streets. We will be at the Department of Labor. Here we come with our friends from Labor. At 4 o'clock, we'll be turned up there. You pay attention to the website and the social media. We'll be doing a socially distant, safe, appropriate action, and just a presencing as we talk about the issues that are really confronting workers and people across this state as we continue to cry loud and spare not what is right in terms of workers. And then Thursday, Connecticut Black women, Pamela, my beloved, and her willing workers. A team of folk have put together a great conversation about the presence and the leadership of Black women in particular in the work. And then, of course, Stations of the Cross, we will observe on Friday. And then, as Reverend Josh mentioned, we will go out to the spot in center, right downtown, the center of Manchester. What's the address there of the spot, Brother Josh?
I don't actually know the address, but it's so right in downtown Manchester. It's a corner of Main Street and Center Street, and The Center Congregational Church is on the corner, so it's across the street from Center Congregational Church. We call it the Spot, and that's the place where Power Up Connecticut usually rolls up and does their Black Lives Matter actions.
Right. So we'll be there on Friday evening in an observance of the 1-year anniversary of the brutal, I'm going to call it just what it was, killing of Jose Soto. We're going to be there with his part of his family and bearing witness. On Saturday at 7 o'clock, we're going to share a conversation with some of our friends and partners from across this country around Black Lives Matter. And then on Sunday at 4 o'clock, Sunday afternoon, we will observe our kind of culminating event where we're going to chat it up a bit and talk about Dr. King. We're going to talk about the work that still is to be done. We got a lot of work to do here in Connecticut, particularly. But can I tell you, what we do here has value that's lasting. And I believe very much that it takes all of us engaged in this process to pull it off. Change happens, but we got to want it to happen. And I believe we are partners together, workers together to do that. Thank you again, everybody, for quite an inspiring conversation this evening. Again, God bless you. Peace. We'll see you tomorrow, 4 o'clock. Peace.